wonderful to meet the both of you. How are you doing? How are you holding up? How are things going?
Good. Well, it's a different festival experience since we're where we are.
We are. Listen, we do what we have to do as we have been for the last 2 years. To me, this now all seems normal, which is kind of sad. But anyway, let's continue here. First of all, congratulations on the film. It is really, really beautiful. And Christina, from the opening credit, like from the opening line, you learn about this band. I had no idea. I've been to New York a million times. I've never known about this. Why, first of all, is this so nobody knows? And second of all, I just honestly cannot believe it's a thing, the no dancing or cabaret law that was lifted in 2017. So tell me a little bit about how that inspired you to create this film.
Well, it's funny because when I came across that law, I couldn't believe it either. And I started researching it, and I started sort of going deeper and trying to find stories, and there's a lot that you can find around that law, and it has evolved over time, right?
Yeah.
It was, it started as a law that was created to stop multiracial mingling in bars, in the jazz bars, in the Harlem Renaissance. And then it continued, and as time, it became as absurd as, only certain instruments were allowed, certain other instruments were not allowed. Then you had to have a cabaret card to perform, and that card could be taken away from you. There were famous, musicians who had to go to Paris because they were not allowed to perform in New York anymore because they lost their cabaret card because they, some weed was found in their, in their bag or something, and and then it was used later on to shut down gay bars. So it was used for many different reasons, and I think it's. And then I started asking my New Yorker friends, did you know about that? Nobody knew about that. I mean,
exactly.
Leon, did you know about that? Yeah. What did I tell you about that first time?
It's
Leon,
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I
was going to ask you that, Leon. Yeah, because I wanted to know how you knew, if you had heard about it, because of the character that you're playing, we'll talk about in a second. But was this all new to you as well?
The law was not, because I had worked in bars and had to stop people from dancing many times.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
I mean, the only people who know about it is, like, as Leon says, people who actually work in the bars.
Right.
And if you would pay attention, you could see those little things, that no dancing allowed, and this is an original, so, I mean, obviously Sam, the real Sam, knew about it and told me stories about it. The musicians knew about it and told me stories about it, but people do not know the law. So there were efforts to repeal it before, but then there was a councilman who pushed for it in 2017, and that's how it happened, that it finally got repealed after 91 years.
Crazy. It's crazy. And Leon, I want to ask you, because I want to know, first off, how you got involved with Christina and how, you guys found each other, but also you're playing, you're not playing Samuel Hargress Jr., but he's kind of, based on him, what he went through and everything. This is a man who, he was known as the jazz godfather. He opened this club in '68. What a special guy. I did a little bit of reading about him, and I'm like, holy mackerel, what an influential, amazing man he was. So how much pressure was that for you to kind of take this on? What was it like for you?
Well, first off, a mutual friend, James McDaniel, introduced Christina and I, and we met. Had a drink and a cigarette, and and so that's how I got involved. She was telling me about Sam. I had, at that point, I did not know of him, and we found out he was Southern, and I'm from the South, and something she saw in me that let her know that I would be right for the part. Thank goodness. And so, so from there, she gave me the part of the script that was mine. I read it. I eventually got to meet him, as we were shooting, which was
Right.
a big relief because I knew him, you know, just as a Southern gentleman, African American gentleman that
Yeah.
you get a sense of because I grew up around him, and of course I'm one myself, and so we both had ministers in our family. I think his father was a minister. Both my grandfather and my brother are ministers,
Wow.
and so we had all that in common. And there's a stoicism with him and a peacefulness that I recognize also. He's at peace with himself. He knows who he is, you know, and he knows his place, you know, where he sits in the history of Harlem and in the United States.
Amazing.
And the world for that matter. So it was like it was a bit challenging because you're realizing at the same time that like the baton is handed from the Harlem Renaissance to Sam, and he's handing it on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was challenging, and you know, and of course there are folks in the bar that actually knew him, you know, and actually worked with him all the years. So yeah, it was a little frightening, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool though. It was a cool thing. And Christina, I mean, I love the way you made this film because it's, you know, these intertwining stories, but the music kind of keeps it all together, which is amazing to me. How difficult was that for you? And also the music, it's all improvised, right? Like these musicians just, you know, like from the subway in the club, wherever they're playing, you could have just done a movie just on music. I mean, it's amazing to me. How did you put this all together?
Okay, there's one sentence I like to say in connection with that. It takes a lot of effort to make something seem effortless.
Right.
So yeah. That's kind of part of the whole improvisation culture. You know, I mean, people say when you say improvisation, and that's what. I mean, I have music as background, so that's maybe important to mention. But and for me, when I tell stories, it's like I play music, you know. And that's the way, you know. I want that fluidity in the storytelling, it's really it's, you know, when people think improvisation, whether in music or in storytelling. Or in acting, you know, or in writing, then they think, okay, that's something that, you know, somebody just says whatever comes to their mind and it's really easy and blah, blah. Actually, it is, you know, you have to be extremely, your craft has to be extremely strong.
Right.
To be able to improvise as a musician. And I think the same, I mean, Leon will tell you, is the case with acting, and the same is the case with everything else, because it's, and you know, all my storytelling, the preparation, the way that I work with everybody is completely focused on that, to get that sense of improvisation, even if it is exactly planned up to every little detail, you know, because it's multi-layered storytelling. The shots are, you know, they have that multi-layered quality. The audio has this multi-layered quality. There's the split screens, which are scripted exactly so that they can be shot in a certain length, so that they can be combined in that way. So that is all, you know, that is all part of that. If you want multi-protagonist, non-linear storytelling that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Do you think, Leon, I hope I'm wrong, but do you think that jazz is kind of dying? I hope it's not, and I love jazz more than anything. But you don't, you know, when you have new artists that come out, it's not in the forefront. Like, how do we push it back?
Yeah, you know, I don't think jazz itself is dying. No, I think what's happening is that the venues that we can access it are becoming rarer and rarer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's as present as it has ever been, and I think this film does a lot to illuminate that, you know, that it is still there and it is still growing with the younger generation. And I was also pleased to hear that Christina thinks of filmmaking as jazz, because I think of acting as jazz, as a form of jazz.
Yeah.
You know, it's always changing, and if you're open and ready to just sort of jump off the diving board, you experience new things every time you do it, and new impulses. And yeah, I think so. So to answer your question, no, I think it's very alive. I think it's very alive.
Good, yeah. Good. Yeah, Christina, did you want to weigh in, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, there's four young musicians in this film. There's there's 7 or 8 who are, 2 of them are legends already, the 2 older gentlemen, Antoine Roney and William Spaceman Patterson. But the 4 that I mean is Camille Thurman, that's the vocalist. She's actually a brilliant saxophonist who plays with the Lincoln Jazz Center. Then it's Tomoki Sanders. They are the son of Pharoah Sanders, the legendary tenor saxophonist who started with John Coltrane. Then there's Marlon Martinez. He also comes from a famous jazz family. And Kojo Odu Roney, who is the son of Antoine Roney and the nephew of Wallace Roney, who was also one of the first victims of COVID, as were many big names in the jazz community.
Right.
So those 4, I was saying the other day, I feel that people will look back and watch this film and see those 4 who are brilliant, stellar musicians who are going to be really big, and they are working on they're so concentrated, and they're so, the music is evolving with them, and they are jazz musicians. So no, jazz, even if Duke said, even if Duke died, jazz is definitely not dead or gonna die anytime soon. And I actually believe that it's America's biggest contribution to the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's beautiful. Well, like I said, I could talk to you guys for hours, but you got other people you got to talk to. So congratulations on this and being in the festival, and best of luck with the film. And what a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you both today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Bonnie.
You're welcome.